Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I forgot my own scream. So I heard a little echo, like, hello, everybody. uh, Tama, where did you go? Darling. Just try to not disconnect anything, will you? Mm-hmm. Good bean. Mm-hmm. And soon we will continue reading, and it will be chapter 22. We shall see how many chapters we're gonna be. Well, how many pages will we be in after, reading these two chapters. Well then, I waited a little bit. Let's see here. Just gonna take a sip of water. Preferably not accidentally spilling it all over me. There we go. Chapter 22. Jonathan Harker's Journal, October 3rd. As I must do something or go mad, I write this diary. It is now 6 o'clock, and we are to meet in the study in half an hour to take something to eat. For Dr. Van Helsing and Dr. Seward are agreed that if we do not eat, we cannot work our best. Our best will be, God knows, required today. I must keep writing at every chance, for I dare not stop to think. All big and little must go down. Perhaps at the end the little things may teach us most. The teaching, big or little, could not have landed Mina or me anywhere worse than we are today. However, we must trust and hope. Poor Mina told me just now, with the tears running down her dear cheeks, that it is trouble and trial, that our faith is tested, and that we must keep trusting, and that God will aid us up to the end. The end? Oh my God, what end? To work? To work? Dr. Van Helsing and Dr. Seward had come back from seeing poor Renfield, and we went gravely into what was to be done. First, Dr. Seward told us that when he and Dr. Van Helsing had gone down to their room below, they had found Renfield lying on the floor, all in a heap. His face was all bruised and crushed in, and the bones of the neck was broken. Dr. Seward asked the attendant who was on duty in the passway if he had heard anything. He said they had been sitting down. He confessed to half dozing when he heard loud sounds in the room, and then Reinfeldt had called out loudly several times, God, God, God. After that there was a sound of falling, and when he entered the room he'd found him lying on the floor, face down, just as the doctor had seen him. Van Helsing asked if he had heard voices or a voice. He said that he could not say, that at first it had seemed to him as if there were two, but there was no one in the room. It could have been only one. He could swear to it, if required, that the word God was spoken by the patient. Dr. Seward said to us, when we were alone, that he did not wish to go into the matter. The question of the inquest had been considered, and it would never do to put forward the truth, as no one would believe it. As it was, he thought that on the attendant's evidence he could give an certificate of death by misadventure in falling from bed. In case of coroner should demand it, there would be a formal inquest necessary for the same result. When the question began to be discussed as to what would be our next step, the very first thing we decided was that Mina should be in full confidence, that nothing of the sort, no matter how painful, should be kept from her. She herself agreed as to its wisdom. It was painful to see her so brave and yet so sorrowful in such a deep of despair, a depths of despair. There must be no concealment, she said. Alas, we have had too much already, and besides, there is nothing in all the world that can give me more. That can give me more pain than I have already endured. Than I suffer now. Whatever may happen, it must be of a new hope or new courage to me. Van Helsing was looking at her fixedly as she spoke, and said suddenly, but quietly, "But dear Madame Mina, are you not afraid, not for yourself, but for others, from yourself? After what have happened?" Hmm. Oh, cannonball cat. Nej, Tamma. Let's see here. Oj, Tamma. Damn it. Oj. Stop it. Her face grew set in its lines, but her eyes shone with the devotion of a martyr as she answered, "Ah, no, for my mind is made up." "To what?" he asked gently, whilst we were all very still, for each in our own way. We had a sort of vague idea of what she meant. Her answer came with direct simplicity, as though she was simply stating a fact, because if I find in myself that I shall watch keenly for it, a sign of harming any that I love, I shall die. "You would not kill yourself?" he asked hoarsely. "I would, if there were no friend who loved me, who would save me such a pain, and so desperate an effort." She looked at him meaningly as she spoke. He was sitting down, but now he rose and came close to her and put his hand on her head and said solemnly, "My child, there is such a one, if it were for you, for your good. For myself, I could hold it in my account with God to find such a... Oh, goodness, one sec. Euthanasia for you, even at this moment, if it were best, nay, were it safe, but my child." For a moment he seemed choked, and a great sob rose in his throat, gulped it down, and went on. There and here some who would stand between you and death. You must not die. You must not die by any hand, but at least of all your own, until the others who has fouled your sweet life is truly dead. You must not die. For if he is still with the quick undead, your dead would make you even as he is. No, you must live. You must struggle and thrive to live, though death would seem a boon unspeakable. You must fight death himself, though he come to you in pain or in joy, by the day or night, in safety or in peril. On your living soul, I charge you that you do not die, nay, nor think of death, till this great evil be past. The poor dear grew white as death, and shook and shivered, as I have seen in a quicksand shake and shiver as the incoming of a tide. We are all silent. We could do nothing. At length she grew more calm and turning to him said sweetly, but oh so sorrowfully, as she held out her hand, I promise you, my dear friend, that if God will let me live, I shall strive to do so, till, if it may be in his good time, this horror may have passed away from me. She was so good and brave that we all felt that our hearts were strengthened to work and endure for her, and we began to discuss that we were to do. I told her that she was to have all the papers in safe, and all the papers or diaries and phonographs we might hereafter use, and was to keep the record as she had done before. She was pleased with the prospect of anything to do, if pleased could be used in connection with so grim an interest. As As usual, Van Helsing had brought ahead of everyone else, and was prepared with the exact ordering of our work. It is perhaps well, he said, that at our meeting after our visit to Carfax, we decided not to do anything with the earth boxes that lay there. Had we done so, the Count must have guessed our purpose and would doubtless have taken measure in advance to frustrate such an effort with regards to the others. But now that he does not know our intentions, nay, more is all probability, he does not know that such a power exists to us as can sterilize his lairs, so that he cannot use them as of old. We are now so much further advanced in our knowledge as to their disposition that, when we have examined the house in Piccadilly, we may track the very last of them today. Then is ours, and in the rest of our hope. The sun that rose on our sorrow this morning guards us in its course until it sets today. That monster must retain whatever form he now has. He is confined within the limitations of his earthly envelope. He cannot melt into thin air nor disappear through cracks or shrinks or crannies. If he go through a doorway, he must open the door like a mortal. And so we have this day to hunt out all his lairs and sterilize them. So we shall, if we have not yet catch him and destroyed him, driven him to bay in some places where the catching and the destroying shall be in time sure. Here I started up, for I could not contain myself, as though that the minute and seconds are precious, laden with Mina's life, and happiness were flying from us. Since whilst we talked, action was impossible, but Van Helsing held up his hand warningly. Nay, friend Jonathan, he said, in this, the quickest way home is the longest way. So your proved say, we shall all act and act with desperate quick, when the time has come, but think in all probable the key of the situation is in that house in Piccadilly. The Count may have many houses in which he has brought. Of them he will have deed of purchase, keys and other things. He will have papers he had written on. He will have his books of sequence. There are many belongings that he must have somewhere. Why not in this place, so central, so quiet, where he can come and go by the front or the back at all hours, when in the very vast of the traffic there is none to notice? We shall go there and search that house, and when we learn what it holds, then we do what our friend Arthur called in his phrase of hunt, stop the earths. And so we run down our old fox, so is it not? Then let us come at once, I cried. We are wasting the precious, precious time. The professor did not move, but simply said, "And how are we to get into the house in Piccadilly?" "Anyway," I cried, "we shall break it if need be." "And your police? Where will they be? And what will they say?" I staggered, but I knew that if he wished to delay, he had a good reason for it, so I said, as quietly as I could, "Don't wait more than need be. You know, I am sure, what torture I am in." "Ah, my child, that I do. And indeed there is no wish for me to add to your anguish. But just think, what can we do until all the world be at movement? Then will come our time. I have thought and thought that it seems to me that the simplest way is best of all. Now we wish to get into the house, but we have no key. Is it not so?" I nodded. "I suppose that you were in truth the owner of this house, and could not still get in. And think, there was to you no conscience of the housebreaker." "What would you do?" "I should get a respectable locksmith and set him to work to picking the lock for me." "And your police? They would interfere, would they not?" "Oh no, not if they knew that the man was properly employed." Then he looked at me as keenly as he spoke. "All that is in doubt is the conscience of the employment, and the belief of your policeman as to whether or not that employer has a good conscience or a bad one. Your police must indeed." Yeah, I do. They have been listening from part 1, so they are grossly, well, they like the book. So yeah, also welcome. Let's see, where was I? Your police must indeed be zealous men and clever, oh so clever in reading the heart, that they trouble themselves in such matters. No, 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 my friend Jonathan. You go and take the lock of 100 empty houses in this your London, or if any city in the world, and if you do, it is as such thing as rightly done, and at the time such things are rightly done, no one will interfere. See here. I have read of a gentleman who owned a so fine house in London, and when he went for months of summer to Switzerland and locked up his house, some burglars came and broke window at back and got in. Then he went and made open the shutters in front and walked out and in through the door, before the very eyes of the police. Then he have an auction in that house and advertised it and put up big notice, and when the day come he sells off by a great auctioneer all the goods of the other man who owned them. Then he go to a builder and sell them, and sell him that house, making an agreement that he pulled it down and taking all away within a certain time, and your police and the other authorities help him all they can. And when the owner comes back from his holiday in Switzerland, he finds only an empty hole where his house had been. It was all done, an eagle, and in our work we shall be equal too. Regal, my bad. We shall not go so early that the policemen who have a little to think of shall deem it strange, but we shall go after 10 o'clock. Then there are many about, and such thing would be done were we indeed owners of the house. I would not I would not but see how right he was, and the terrible despair of Mina's face become relaxed in thought. There was hope in such good counsel. Van Helsing went on. When once within the house we may find more clues. At any rate, some of us can remain there whilst the rest find the other places where there be more earth boxes in Berthmondis and Mile End. Let's see. Lord Godalming stood up. I can be of some use here, he said. I shall wire to my people to have horses and carriages where they will be most convenient. Look here, old fella, said Morris. It is a capital idea to have all ready in case we want to go horsebacking. But don't you think that one of your snappy carriages, with its heraldic abnormance in a byway of Woolworth or Mile End, would attract too much attention for our purpose? Seems to me that we ought to take the cab when we go south or east, or even leave them somewhere near the neighborhood we are going to. Friend Quincy is right, said the professor. His head is what you call in planes with the horizon. It is a difficult thing that we go to do, and we do not want no people to watch us, if so it may. Mina took a growing interest in everything, and I was rejoiced to see that the exing oh my goodness exigency of affairs was helping her to forget of a time the terrible experience of the night. She was very, very pale, almost ghastly, and so thin that her lips were drawn away, showing her teeth in somewhat of a prominence. I did not mention this last, lest it should give her needless pain. But it made my blood run cold in my veins to think of what had occurred with poor Lucy when the Count had sucked her blood. And yet there was no sign of the teeth growing sharper. But the time was short, and there was time to fear. When we came to the discussion of the sequence of our effort and the disposition of our forces, there were new sources of doubt. It was finally agreed that before starting for Piccadilly we should destroy the Count's lair close at hand. In case he should find it out too soon, we should thus be still ahead of him in our work of destruction. And his presence, in his purely material shape, and his weakest, might give us a new clue. As to the disposal of forces, it was suggested by the professor that after our visit to Carfax we should all enter the house in Piccadilly, and that the two doctors and I should remain here, whilst Lord Godalming and Quincy found the lair at Woolworth and Mile End and destroyed them. It was possible, if not likely, that Professor urged, and that the Count might appear in Piccadilly during the day, and that if not, and if so, we might be able to cope with him then and there. At any rate, we might be able to follow him in force. To this plan I steadily objected, and so far as my going was concerned, for I said that I intended to stay and protect Mina. I thought that my mind was made up on the subject, but Mina would not listen to my objection. She said that there might be some law matter in which I would be useful, that amongst the Count's papers might be some clue which I could understand out of my experience in Transylvania, and that, as it was, all the strength we could muster was required to cope with the Count's extraordinary power. I had I have to give in, for Mina's resolution was fixed. She said that it was the last hope for her that we could all work together. Uh, okay, what's he doing? You okay over there? Let's see, what does he have? Uh-huh. Dead sapling, violet, high grass, burning blossom. Wait, that's all you have? I'm sorry, not interested. I thought he had something interesting. Sorry, Douglas. I shall continue. It's almost like, why did you leave? Okay, let's see here. Oop, accidentally tapped out. Did not mean to do that. Let's see here. As for me, she said, I have no fear. Things has been as bad as they can be, and whatever may happen must have in it some element of hope or comfort. So go, my husband, good can, if he wishes it, guard me as well alone as if anyone present. So if I start up crying out, then in God's name let us come at once. For we are losing time. The Count may come to Piccadilly earlier than we think. Not so, said Van Helsing, holding up his hand. But why, I ask? Do you forget, he said, with actually a smile, the last night he banqueted heavenly and will sleep late? Did I forget? Shall I ever? Can I ever? Can any of us ever forget that terrible scene? Mina struggled hard to keep her brave countenance, but the pain overmastered her, and she put her hands before her face and shuddered whilst he moaned. And Helsing had not intended to recall her frightful experience. He had simply lost sight of her and her part in the affair in his intellectual effort. When it struck him what he said, he was horrified at his thoughtlessness, and tried to comfort her. Oh, Madame Mina, he said, dear Madame at last. That is I of all who so reserves. You should have said anything so forgetful. These stupid old lips of mine and this stupid old head do not deserve so. But you will forget it, will you not? He bent low aside as he spoke. She took his hand, looking at him through her tears, said hoarsely, No, I shall not forget, which, for it is well that I remember, and with it I have so much in memory of you that is sweet, that I take it all together. Now you must all be going soon. Breakfast is ready, and we must all eat, that we may be strong. Breakfast was a strange meal to us all. We tried to be cheerful and encourage each other, and Mina was the brightest and most cheerful of us. When it was over, Van Helsing stood up and said, "Now, my dear friends, we go forth to our terrible enterprise. We Are we all armed, as we were on the night when we first visited our enemy's lair? Armed against ghostly as well as carnal attack?" We all assured him. Then it is well. Now, Madame Mina, you are in any case quite safe here until the sunset, and before then we shall return, if we shall return. But before we go, let me see you are armed against personal attack. I have myself, since you came down, prepared your chamber by the placement of things in which we know, so he may not enter. Now let me guard you. Let me guard yourself. On your forehead, touch this piece of sacred wafer, in the name of the Father, Son, and the... There was a fearful scream which almost froze our hearts to hear, as he had placed the wafer on Mina's forehead. It had seared it, had burned into the flesh as though it had been a piece of white hot metal. My poor darling's brain had told her the significance of the fact that quickly as her nerves received the pain of it, the two so overwhelmed that her overwrought nature had its voice in a dreadful scream. But the words to her thought came quickly. The echo of the scream had not ceased to ring on the air when they came to the reaction. Then she sank on her knees on the floor in an agony of absent, pulling her beautiful hair over her face as the leaple of old his mantle, and he wailed out, "Unclean, unclean! Even the Almighty shuns my polluted flesh. I must bear this mark of shame upon my forehead until Judgment Day." They all passed. I had thrown myself beside her in agony of helpless grief, and putting my arms around her, held her tight. For a minute, our sorrowful hearts beat together, whilst the friend around us turned away their eyes and ran tears silently. Then Van Helsing turned and said gravely, so gravely that I could not help feeling then he was in some way inspired and he was starting things outside himself. It may be that you may have to bear that mark till God himself see fit, as he most surely shall on Judgment Day, to redress all wrongs of the earth and of his children that he had placed thereon. And oh, Madame Mina, my dear, may we who love you be there to see, when the red scar, the sign of God's knowledge of what has been, shall pass away, and leave your forehead as pure as the heart we know. For so surely as we live, the scar shall pass away, when God sees right to lift the burden that is hard upon us. Till then we bear our cross. So his son did in obedience to his will. It may be that we are chosen instrument of his good pleasure, and that we ascend to his bidding as the other through stripped and shamed, through tears and blood, through doubt and fear, and all that makes the difference between God and man. There were hope in his voice, in his words, and comfort. see here. And they made for resignation. Mina and I both felt so, and simultaneously we each took one of the old man's hand and bent over and kissed it. Then, without a word, we all kneeled down together, and all holding hands swore to be true to each other. We men pledged ourselves to raise the veil of sorrow from the head of her whom each in his own way we loved. We prayed for help and guidance in a terrible task which lay before us. It was then time to start, so I said farewell to Mina and parted, which neither of us shall forget, to our dying days as we set out. To one thing I have made up my mind. If we find out that Mina must be a vampire in the end, then she shall not go into the unknown and terrible land alone. I suppose it is thus that in old times one vampire meant many, just as their hideous bodies could only rest in sacred earth. So the holiest love was the recruiting sergeant of their ghastly ranks. We entered Carfax without trouble and found all things the same as on the first occasion. It was hard to believe that amongst the prosquaint surroundings of neglect and dust. Jesus, that scared the shit out of me. That scared the shit out of me. Oh, oh my god. Oh, oh my god. Give me one moment. Oh, Jesus. That scared. Oh my god, that scared me so much. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I was reading that, and then I hear the phantoms like, hey, and it scared me, and I'm like, ah. Yes, I'm a scaredy cat. Also, hi, Axel. Oh. Give me a moment. I need to collect myself here. It genuinely scared it scared me. Oof. And this is why I don't play horror games. Because phantoms are not even scary, and I got scared by the little sound they made. This is what happened when you're too engrossed in a book. I hope you're doing well, Axel. Let's see. Seriously, where is it? Ah, there it is. Ah, good morning. Hope you slept well. Goodness, that scared me. See, now it's complete proof why I can't play horror games. It's a good thing I didn't have like a what do you call it? A heart monitor, because then it would have spiked for a bit. I actually watched a streamer that was like playing, or we're gonna play a horror game, and he had a heart monitor. I didn't stay to watch because, you know, I don't like horror games, but hopefully it went well for him. Nice. You know, doing streaming. No, doing good. So, yeah. Okay, let's see here. But yeah, good to see you. Hopefully you're gonna have a good Friday. Okay, where was I? Right. neglected and dust and decay. There was any ground for such fear was already, as already we knew. Had not our minds been made up, and had there not been terrible memories to spur us on, we could hardly have proceeded with our task. We found no papers or any sign of use in the house. In the old chapel, the great boxes looked just as we had seen them last. Dr. Van Helsing said to us solemnly as we stood before him, "And now, my friends, we have a duty here to do. We must sterilize this earth, so sacred of holy memory, that, and he has brought from a far distant land for such fell use. He have chosen this earth because it has been holy. Thus we defeat him with his own weapon, for we make it more holy still. It was sanctified to such use of man, now we sanctify it to God." As he spoke, he took from his bag a screwdriver and a wrench, and very soon the top of one of the cases was thrown open. The earth smelled musty and close, but we did not somehow seem to mind, for our attention was concentrated on the professor. Taking from his box a piece of the sacred wafer, he laid it reverently on the earth, and then, shutting down the lid, began to screw it home. We aided him as he worked. One by one we treated it same way, each of the great boxes, and left them as we had found them to all appearance, but in each was a portion of the host. When we closed the door behind us, the professor said solemnly, "So much is already done. It may be that with all the others we can be so successful that the sunset of this evening may shine off Madame Mina's forehead, all white as ivory and with no stain." As we passed across the lawn on our way to the station to catch our train, we could see the front of the asylum. I looked eagerly in the window of my own room. I saw Mina. I waved my hand to her and nodded to tell our work there was successfully accomplished. She nodded in reply to show that she understood. The last I saw, she was waving her hand in farewell. It was with a heavy heart that we sought the station and just caught the train, which was steaming in as we reached the platform. I have written this in the train. Piccadilly, 12:30 o'clock. Just before we reached French Church Street, Lord Godalming said to me, "Quincy and I will find a locksmith. You had better not come with us in case there should be any difficulty, for under the circumstances it wouldn't seem too bad for us to break into an empty house. But you are a solicitor, and the Incorporate Law Society might tell you that you should have known better." I demurred as to my not sharing any danger, even of odium. But he went on, besides, it will attract less attention if there are not too many of us. My title will make it all right with a locksmith, and with any policeman that may come along. You had better go with Jack and the professor to stay in the Green Park, somewhere in sight of the house, and when you see the door open and the smith has gone away, do you all come across. We shall be on the lookout for you, and we shall let you in. The advice is good, said Van Helsing. So we said no more. Godalming and Morris hurried off in a cab, we following in another. At the corner of Arlington Street, our contingent uh, got out and strolled into the Green Park. My heart beat as I saw the house on which so much of our hope was centered, looming up grim and silent in its deserted conditions among its more lively and spare-looking neighbors. We sat down on a bench with good view, and began to smoke cigars so as to attract as little attention as possible. The minutes seemed to pass with leaden feet as we waited for the coming of the others. At the length we saw a four-wheeled drive up. Out of it, in leisurely fashion, got Lord Godalming and Morris, and down from the box descended a thick-set working man with his rush-worn basket of tools. Morris paid the cabman, who touched his hat and drove away. Together the two ascended the steps, and Lord Godalming pointed out that what he wanted done. The workman took off his coat leisurely and hung it in one of the spikes of the rails, saying something to the policeman who just then sauntered along. The policeman nodded acquaintancy, and the man kneeled down and placed his bag beside him. After searching through it, and he took out a section of tools which he proceeded to lay beside him in orderly fashion. Then he stood up and looked in the keyhole, blew into it, and turning to his employer, made some remarks. Lord Godalming smiled, and the man lifted a good-sized bunch of keys, selecting one of them, and began to probe the lock, as if feeling his way with it. After fumbling about for a bit, he tried a second, and then a third. All at once the door opened under a slight push from him, and he and the two others entered the hall. He sat still. My own cigarette burned furiously, but Van Helsing's went cold altogether. We waited patiently as we saw the workman come out and bring his bag. Then he held the door partially open, steadily with his knee, whilst he fitted a key to the lock. This he finally handed to Lord Godalming, who took out his purse and gave him something. The man touched his hat, took his bag, and put on his coat and departed. Not a soul took the slightest notice of the whole transaction. When the man had fairly gone, we three crossed the street and knocked at the door. It was immediately opened by Quincy Morris, beside whom stood Lord Godalming, lighting a cigarette. The place smells so vilely, he said later as we came in. It did indeed smell vilely, like an old chapel in Carfax, and with our previous experience it was plain to us that the Count had been using the place pretty freely. We moved to explore the house, all keeping together in case of attack, for we knew we had a strong and wily enemy to deal with, and as yet we did not know whenever the Count might not be in the house. In the dining room, which laid at the back of the hall, we found 8 boxes of earth, 8 boxes only out of the 9 which we sought. We worked. Our work was not over, and would never be until we should have found the missing box. First, we opened the shutters of the window, which looked out across the narrow stone flaggered yard, at the blank face of a stable pointed to look like the front of a miniature horse. There was no window in it, so we were not afraid of being overlooked. We did not lose any time in examining the chests. With the tools which we had brought with us, we opened them one by one and treated them as we treated those who we had opened in the old chapel. It was evident to us that the Count was not present in the house, and we proceeded to search for any of his effects. After a cursory glance at the rest of the rooms, from the basement to attic, we came to the conclusion that the dining room contained any effect which might belong to the Count, and so we proceeded to minutely examine them. They laid in a sort of orderly disorder on the great dining room table. There were title deeds of the Piccadilly house in a great bundle, deeds of the purchase of the house at Mile End and Bernemont's note papers and envelopes. And ink and pens pens and ink. All were covered up in thin wrapping paper to keep them from the dust. There were also a cloth brush, a brush and a comb and a jug and a basin. The lady contained dirty water which was ruddied as if with blood. Last of all was a little heap of keys, all sorted by size, probably those who belonged to the other houses. When we had examined this last find, Lord Godalming and Quincy Morris, taking accurate notes of various addresses of the houses in East and South, took with them the keys in a great bundle and set out to destroy the boxes in these places, and the rest of us are, with the patience we can, waited for their return or the coming of the Count. Interesting. Ooh. Hmm. Wait, is each chapter 10? Oh, wait a minute. If each chapter is like 10, then let's see, that's 2 chapters. That's also 2 chapters. Yeah, that could be correct then, because if each chapter is like 10 pages, then that definitely would mean that, well, yeah. Well then, let's continue. Chapter 23rd, Dr. Soode's Diary, October 3rd. The time seemed terribly long whilst we were waiting for the coming of Godalming and Quincy Morris. The professor tried to keep our minds active by using them all the time. I could see his beneficent purpose by the side glances which he threw from time to time at Hawker. The poor fellow is overwhelmed with the misery that is appalling to see. Last night He was a frank, happy-looking man, with strong, youthful face full of energy, and with dark brown hair. Today, he's a drawn, haggard old man whose white hair matches well with the hollow, burning eyes and grief-written lines of his face. His energy is still intact, in fact. He is like a living flame. This may yet be his salvation, for if all goes well, it will tide him over the despairing period. He will then, in a kind of way, wake up again to the realization of life. Poor fellow, I thought. My own trouble was bad enough, but his. The professor knew this well enough, and in doing his best to keeping his mind active, what he has been saying was under the circumstances of absorbing interests, so well as I can remember. Here is. I have studied over and over again since they came into my hands all the papers relating to this monster, and more I have studied, the greater seems the necessity to utterly stamp him out, although there are signs of his advance, not only of his power but his knowledge of it. As I learned from the researches of my friend Arminius of Budapest, he was in life a most wonderful man, soldier, statesman, and alchemist, which later was the highest development of the science knowledge of his time. He had a mighty brain, a learning beyond compare, and a heart that knew no fear or no remorse. He dared even to attend the scholarmans, and there were no such branch of knowledge of his time that he did not say. Interesting. Well, in him the brain power survival the physical death, though it would seem that the memory was not all complete. In some faculties of mind, he has been and is only a child. But he is growing, and so things that were childish at first are now of man's stature. He is experimenting and doing it well. And if it had not been that we have crossed his path, he would be yet. He may be yet if we failed, the father or veteran of a new order of beings whose road must lead through death, not life. Thank you. I have a cat that's using my footrests, so I need to stretch out my leg from time to time. Hawker groaned and said, "And this is all a raid against my darling. But how is he experimenting? The knowledge may help us to defeat him. He has all along since his coming has been trying his power, slowly but surely. The big child brain of his is working well for us. It is yet a child brain, for had he dared at first to attempt certain things, he would long ago have been beyond our power. However, he means to succeed, and a man who has centuries before him can afford to wait and go slow. Festina, let may well be his motto. I fail to understand, said Hawker wearily. Oh, to be more plain to me, perhaps grief and trouble are dulling my brain. What did you do? You having fun, the cat? My cat is like having fun on the seat. Hopefully this is not too loud. Definitely too loud. My bad. Sorry. I can't tell if that was a banana or not. Like a crunchy banana. Okay, let's see here. Hi, Tama. The professor laid his hand tenderly on his shoulder as he spoke. Ah, my child, I will be plain. Do you not see how, of late, this monster has been creeping into knowledge experimentally? How he has been making use of the Sonhagrassi patient to affect his entire entry into Friend John's home. For your vampires, though in all afterwards, he can come when and how he will. Must at first make entry only when asked there though by an inmate. But these are not his most important experiment. Do we not see how at first all these so great boxes were moved by others? He knew not then by that must be so, but all the time that so great child brain of his was growing, and he began to consider whenever he might not himself move the boxes, so he began to help. And then, when he found that this be all right, he tried to move them all alone. And so he proceeds a process, and he shatters these graves of him, scatters these graves of him. And none but he know where they are hidden. He may have intended to bury them deep in the ground, so that only he used them in the night, or as such as he can change his form, when they do him equally well. And none may know there are his hiding place. But my child, do not despair. This knowledge came to him just too late. Already all of his lairs but one be sterilized as for him. And before the sunset this shall be so. Then he have no place where he can move and hide. I delayed this morning that so we might be sure. Is there not more at stake for us than him? Then why not be more careful than him? By my clock, it is 1 hour and 1 hour and already. If all be well, friend Arthur and Quincy are on their way to us. Today is our day, and we must go sure, if slow, and lose no chance. See, there are 5 of us, and there's absence one's return. Whilst we are speaking, we are startled by a knock at the hall door. The double postman's knock of the telegraph boy. We all moved out of the hall with one impulse, and Van Helsing, holding up his hand to us to keep silent, stepping to the door and open it. The boy handed in a dispatch. The professor closed the door again and looking at the direction, opening it and reading it out loud. Looking out for D. He has just now 12:45 come from Carfax, hurriedly and hastily towards the south. Seems to be going the round and may want to see you, Mina. There was a pause, broken by Jonathan Hawker's voice. Now, Be God thanked, we shall soon meet. Van Helsing turned to him quickly and said, God will act his own way and time. Do not fear and do not rejoice as yet, for what we wish at the moment may not be may be our own undoing. I care for nothing now, he answered hotly, except to wipe out this brute from the face of creation. I would sell my soul to do it. Oh, hush, hush, my child, said Van Helsing. God does not purchase souls in the wise, and the devil, though he may purchase, does not keep faith. But God is merciful and just, and knows your pain and your devotion to that dear Madame Mina. Think you how her pain should be doubled did she but hear your wild words? Do not fear any of us. We are all devoted to this cause, and today shall see the end. This time is coming for action. Today this vampire it is limited to the power of man, and till sunset he may not change. It will take him time to arrive here. See, it is 20 minutes past 1, and there are yet some time before he can hither come. Be he never so quick, what we must hope for is that my Lord Arthur and Quincy arrives first. About half an hour after we received Mr. Hawker's telegram, there came a quiet, resolute knock at the hall door. It was just an ordinary knock, such as given hourly by thousands of gentlemen, but it made Professor's heart and mind beat loudly. We looked at each other, and together moved out into the hallway. We each held steadily to use our various arraiments, the spiritual in the left hand and the immortal in the right. Van Helsing pulled back the latch, and holding the door half open, stood back, having both hands ready for action. The gladness of our heart must have shone upon our face when one step close to the door we saw Godalming and Quincy Morris. They came quickly in and closed the door behind them, and informed, saying, as they moved along the hall, "Is it all right?" We found both places, 6 boxes in each, and destroyed them all. Destroyed? Asked Professor. For him. We were silent for a minute, and then Quincy said, There's nothing to do but wait here. If, however, he doesn't turn up by 5 o'clock, we must start off, for it won't be to leave Mrs. Hawkers alone after sunset. Let's see here. He will be here before long now, said Van Helsing, who had been consulting his pocketbook. Note bene in Madame Telegram. He went south from Carfax. That means he went to cross the river, and he could only do so at slack of tide, which should be something before 1 o'clock. That he went south has a meaning for us. He is yet only suspicious, and he went from Carfax first to the place where he would suspect interference least. You must have been at Bermondsey only a short time before him. That he is not here already shows that he went to Miles End next. This took him some time, for he would then have to be carried over the river in some way. Believe me, my friends, we shall not have long to wait now. We should have ready some plan of attack, so that we may throw away no chance. Hush, there is no time now. Have all your arms be ready. He held up a warning hand as he spoke, for we all could hear a key softly inserting in the lock at the hall door. I could not but admire. Even at such a moment, the way in which a dormant spirit asserted itself in all our hunting parties and adventures in different parts of the world. Quincy Morris had always been the one to arrange a plan of action. And Quincy Morris and Arthur and I had been accustomed to obey him impliedly. Now now the old habit seems to be renewed instinctively. With a swift glance around the room, he at once laid out our plan of attack, and without speaking a word, with a gesture placed us each in a position. Van Helsing and Hawker and I were just behind the door, so that when it opened, the professor could guard it while we two stepped between the incomer and the door. The Dalming behind and the Quincy in front stood just out of sight, ready to move in front of the window. We waited in the suspense that made the seconds pass with a nightmare slowness. The slow, careful steps came along the hall. The Count was evidently prepared for some surprise, at least he feared it. Suddenly, with a single bound, he leaped into the room, winning a way past us before any of us could raise a hand against him and stay him. There was to uh, something so panther-like in the movement, something so unhuman that it seemed to sober us all from the shock of his coming. The first to act was Hawker, who, which was quick movement, threw himself before the door leading into the room in front of the house. As the Count saw us, a horrible sort of snarl passed over his face, showing the eye teeth long and pointed. But the evil smile as quickly passed into a cold stare of a lion-like disdain. His expression again changed as, with a single impulse, we all advanced upon him, into a pity that we had not some better organization plan of attack, for even at the moment I wonder what we were to do. I did not myself know whenever our lethal weapons could avail us anything. Walker evidently meant to try the matter, for he had ready his great Kirkrin knife and made a fierce and sudden cut at him. The blow was a powerful one. Only the diabolical quickness of the Count's leap back saved him. A second less, and the treacherous blade would have shoved through his heart. As it was, the point just cut the cloak of his coat, making a wide gap where a bundle of banknotes and a stream of gold fell out. The expression of the Count's face was so hellish that for a moment I feared for Harker, though I saw him throw The terrible knife a loaf again for another stroke. Instinctively, I moved forward with a protective impulse, holding the crucifix and the wafer in my left hand. I left a mighty, um, I felt a mighty power fly along my arm. It was without surprise that I saw the monster cowered back before a similar movement made spontaneous by each one of us. It would be impossible to describe the expression of hate and baffle, magnetite of anger and hellish rage, which came over the Count's face. His waxed hue became greyish yellow by the contact of his burning eyes, contrast of his burning eyes, and the red scar on the forehead showed of the paled skin like a pulpitching wound. The next instant, with a snarious dive, he swept under Hawke's arm ere his elbow could fall, grasping a handful of money from the floor, and dashed across the room, throwing himself at the window. Aimed the crash and glitter of the falling glass, he tumbled into the flagged era below. Through the sound of the shivering glass, I could hear the thing of gold as some of the sovereigns fell on the flagging. We ran over and saw him spring unhurt from the ground. He rushing up the steps, crossed the flag yard, and pushed open the stable door. There he turned and spoke to us. You think to baffle me, you with your pale faces all in row, like sheep in a butcher's. You shall be sorry yet, each one of you. You think you left me without a place to rest, but I have more. My revenge is just begun. I spread it over centuries and time on my side. Your girls, that you all love, are mine already. Oops. Wait. There we go. And here. There we go. And though them you and others shall yet be mine, my creatures, to do my bidding and to be my jackals when I want to feed. Bah! With a contemptuous sneer, he passed quickly through the door, and we heard a rustling board creak as he fastened it behind him. A door beyond opened and shut. The first of us to speak was Professor. Realization the difficulty of following him through the stable, moved towards the hall. We have learned something much. Notwithstanding his brave words, he fears us, he fears time, he fears want, for if not, why he hurries so? His very tone betrayed him, or my ears deceive. Why take the money? You follow quick. You are hunters of the wild beast, And understand it so. For me, I make sure that nothing here may be of use to him. If so, that he returns. As he spoke, he put the money remaining in his pockets, took the title deeds in the bundle, as Hawker had left behind, and swept the remaining things into the open fire, where he set fire to them with a match. Godalming and Morris had rushed out in the yard, and Hawker had lowered himself from the window to follow the Count. He had, however, bolted the stable door, and by the time they had forced it open, there were no sign of him. Van Helsing and I tried to make a query at the back of the house, but the mews was deserted and no one had seen him depart. It was now late in the afternoon and the sunset was not far off. We had to recognize that our game was up. With heavy heart we agreed with the professor that he said, "Let us go back to Madame Mina. Poor dear Madame Mina. All we can do now is done, and we can dare at least protect her. But we need not despair. There is but one more earth box, and we must try to find it. When that is done, all may yet be well." I could see that he had spoke so bravely as he could to comfort Hawker. The poor fellow was quite broken down. Now and again he gave a low growl, which he could not suppress. He was thinking of his wife. With a sad heart, we came back to my house. There we found Mrs. Hawker waiting us, with the appearance of cheerfulness with which did honor to her bravery and unselfishness. Then she saw our faces. Her own became as pale as death. A second or two her eyes were closed as if she were in secret prayer. And then she said cheerfully, "I can never thank you all enough. Oh my poor darling." As she spoke, she took her husband's grey head in her hand and kissed it. "Lay your poor head here and rest it. All will be well, dear. God will protect us if he so will it in his good intent." The poor fellow groaned. There was no place for words in his sublimed misery. We had a sort of perfunctory supper together, and I think it cheered us all up somewhat. It was perhaps the mere animal heat of food to hungry people, for none of us had eaten anything since breakfast, or the sense of companionship may have helped us. By anyhow, we were all less miserable, and saw the marrow as not altogether without hope. True to our promise, we told Mrs. Hawkers everything which had passed, and although she grew snow white at the time when danger had seemed to threaten her husband, and red at once when his devotion to her was manifested, she listened bravely and with calmness. When we came to the part where Walker had rushed at the Count so recklessly, she clung to her husband's arm and held it so tight as though her clinging could protect him from any harm that might come. He said nothing, however. The narration was all done, and the matter has been brought up at the present time. Then, without letting go of her husband's hand, she stood up amongst us and spoke. Oh, that could give any idea of scenes, of the sweetness, of the sweet, sweet, good woman in all the radiant beauty of her youth and animation, with a red scar on her forehead of which she was conscious, and which she saw with grinning of her teeth, remembering which and how it came. Her, her loving kindness against our grim hates, her tender faith against all our fears and doubting, and we, knowing that as far as symbol went, she, with all her goodness and purity and faith, was outcast from God. Jonathan, she said, and the words sounded like music on her lips. It was so full of love and tenderness. Jonathan, dear, and you all, my true, true friends, I want you to bear something in mind through all this dreadful time. I know that you must fight, that you must destroy, even as you destroyed the false Lucy, so that the true Lucy might live hereafter. But it is not a work of hate. The poor soul who are wronged all this misery is the saddest case of all. Just think, what wi- what will he what will be his joy when he too is destroyed in his worst part? This better part may have spiritual um, immorality. You must have you must be pitiful to him too, though it may not hold your hands from his destruction. As she spoke, I could see her husband's face darken and draw together. As though the passion in him were shriveling his being to his core. Instinctively, the clasp of his wife's hand grew closer, till his knuckles looked white. She did not flinch from the pain which I knew she must have suffered, but looked at him with eyes that were more appealing than ever. As she stopped speaking, he leaped to his feet, almost tearing his hand from her as she spoke. May God give him into my hands, just for long enough to destroy that earthly life of his, life of him, which we are aiming at. If beyond it I could send his soul forever and ever to burn in hell, I would do it. Oh hush, in the name of the good God, don't say such things, Jonathan, my husband, or you will crush me with fear and horror. Just think, my dear, I've been thinking all this long day of it, that perhaps some day I too maybe need such pity, and that some other like you, and with equal cause of anger, may deny it to me. Oh, my husband, indeed, I would have spared you such a thought, that there be another way. But I pray that God may not have treasured you wild words, except as the heartbroken wail of a very long loving and sorely stricken man. O God, let these poor white hairs go into evidence of what he have suffered, who all his life has done no wrong, and on who so many sorrows has come. We men were all in tears now. There was no restricting them, and we wept openly. She wept too, to see that her sweeter consolence had prevailed. Her husband flung himself on his knees beside her, putting his arm around her, hiding his face in the fold of her dress. Van Helsing beckoned to us, and we stole out of the room, leaving the two loving hearts alone with their God. Before they retired, the professor fixed up the room again, any coming of the vampire, and assured Mrs. Harker that she might rest in peace. She tried to school herself to the belief, and manifestly, for her husband's sake, tried to seem content. It was a brave struggle, and was, I think and believe, nor without its reward. Van Helsing uh, a bell, which either of them was to sound in case of any emergency. When they had retired, Quincy and Godalming and I arranged that we should sit up, dividing the night between us, and watch over the safety of the poor stricken lady. The first watch fell on Quincy, so that the rest of us shall be off to bed soon as we can. Godalming has already turned in, for his is the second watch. Now for my work is on. Now my work is done. I too shall go to bed. Jonathan Hawker's Journal, October 3rd to 4th. Close to midnight, I thought yesterday would never end. There was over me a yearning for sleep, in some sort of blind belief that to wake would to be finding things changed, and that any change must now be for the better. Before we parted, we discussed it, what our next step was to be, but we could arrive at no result. All we knew was that one earth box remained, and that the Count also knew where it was. If he chose to lie hidden, he may baffle us for years. And in the meantime, the thought is too horrible. I dare not think of it even now. This I know, that if ever there was a woman who was all perfection, that one is my poor wronged darling. I love her 1,000 times more for her sweet pity of last night, a pity that made my own hate of the monster seem despicable. Surely God will not permit the world to be poorer by the loss of such a creature. This is the hope to me. We are all drifting reefwards now, and fate is our only anchor. Thank God Mina is sleeping, and sleeping without dream. I fear that her dreams like might be like with such terrible memory to ground them in. She has not been so calm within my seeing since the sunset. Then for a while there came over her face a repose which was like spring after a blast of marsh. I thought at the time that it was the softness of the red sunset on her face, but somehow now I think it has a deeper meaning. I was not asleep myself, though I am weary of death. However, I must try to sleep, for there is tomorrow to think of, and there is no rest for me until. Later, I must have fallen asleep, for I was awakened by Mina, who was sitting in bed, with a startled look on her face. I could see easily, for we did not leave the room in darkness. She had placed a warning hand on my mouth, and now she whispered in my hush, "There is someone in the corridor." I got up softly and crossed the room, gently opening the door. Just outside, stretched on the mattress, lay Mr. Morris, wide awake. He raised a warning hand for silence as he whispered to me, "Hush, go back to bed. It is all right. One of us will be here all night. We don't mind taking We don't mean to take any chances." His look and gesture forbade discussion, so I came back and told Mina. She sighed, and positively a shadow of a smile stole over her poor pale face as she put her arms around me and said softly, "Oh, thank God for good, brave men." With a sigh, she sank back again to sleep. I write this now as I am not sleepy, though I must try again. October 4th, morning. Once again during the night I was wakened by Mina. This time we all, time we had all had a good sleep. For the grey of the coming dawn was making the windows into sharp oblongs. The gas flame was like a speck rather than a disc of light. She said to me hurriedly, "Go and call the professor. I want to see him at once." "Why?" I asked. "I have an idea. I suppose it must have come in the night and matured without me knowing it. Must He must hypnotize me before the dawn, and then I shall be able to speak. Go quickly, dearest. The time is getting close." I went to the door. Dr. Seward was resting on the mattress, and seeing me, he sprang to his feet. "Anything wrong?" he asked in alarm. "No," I replied, "but Mina wants to see Dr. Van Helsing at once." "I will go," he said, and hurried into the professor's room. 2 or 3 minutes later, Van Helsing was in the room in his dressing gown. Okay, let's see. Mr. Morris and Lord Godalming were in Dr. Seward's at the door, asking questions. When the professor saw Mina and smiled, a positive smile ousted the anxiety off his face. He rubbed his hand as he said, "Oh, my dear Madame Mina, this is indeed a chance. See, friend Jonathan, we have got our dear Madame Mina, as of old, back to us today." Then, turning to her, he said cheerfully, "And what am I to do for you?" Let's see here. "For at this hour you do not want me for nothing. I want you to hypnotize me," she said. "Do it before the dawn, for I feel that I can speak, and speak freely. Be quick, for the time is short." Without a word, he motions her to sit up in bed. Let's see. Looking fixated at her, he commenced to make passes in front of her, from over the top of her head and downwards, with each hand in turn. Minas gazed at him fixedly for a few minutes, during which my own heart beat like a hammer, for I felt that some crisis was at hand. Gradually her eyes closed, and she sat stock still. Only by the gentle heaving of her bosoms could one know that she was alive. The professor made a few more passing and then stopped, and I could see that his forehead was covered with great beads of perspiration. Mina opened her eyes, but it did not seem the same woman. There was a faraway look in her eyes, and her voice had a saddened dreaminess which was new to me. Raising his hand imposed silence, and Professor motioned me to bring the other in. They came on tiptoe, closing the door behind them, and stood at the foot of the bed. Looking on, Mina appears not to see them. The stillness was broken by Van Helsing's voice speaking in a low tone, in a low level tone which would not break the current of a thought. Where are you? The answer came in a neutral way. I do not know. Sleep has no place it can call its own. For several minutes there was silence. Mina sat rigid, and the professor staring at her fixedly. And the rest of us hardly dared to breathe. The room was growing lighter, without taking his eyes from Mina's face. Dr. Van Helsing motioned me to pull up the blinds. I did so, and the day seemed just upon us. A red streak shot up, and a rosy light seemed to diffuse itself through the room. On an instant the professor asked again, "Where are you now?" The answer came dreamily, but with intention. It was as though she was in predicting something. I have heard her use the same tone when reading her shorthand notes. I do not know. It is all strange to me. What do you see? I can see nothing. It is all dark. What do you hear? I could detect the strain in the professor's patient voice. The lapping of water. It is gurgling by. A little wave leaps. I can hear them on the outside. Then are you on a ship? We all looked at each other, trying to glean something each from another. We are afraid to think. The answer came quick. Oh, yes. What else do you hear? The sound of men stamping overhead as they run about, and there is creaking of a chain, and the loud tickle of a check of the caspen falls into the ratters. What are you doing? I'm still, oh so still. It is like death. The voice fades away into a deep breath, as one of sleep, and then open, eyes closed again. By the time the sun had risen, and we were all in full light of day, Dr. Van Helsing placed his hand on Mina's shoulder and laid her head down softly on her pillow. She laid like a sleeping child for a few moments, and then, with a long sigh, awoke and stared with wonder to see us all around her. "Have I been talking in my sleep?" was all she said. You seem, however, to know the situation without telling, though she was eager to know what she has told. The professor repeated the conversation and said, "Then there is not a moment to lose. It may not be yet too late." Mr. Morris and Lord Godalming stared for the door at the professor, calm voice, and called them back. "Stay, my friends. The ship, wherever it was weighed anchor at the moment in your great port of London. Which of them it is you seek?" God be thanked that we have once again a clue, though within it may lead us, we not know. We have been blinded somewhat, blind after what manner of man, since we can look back and see what we might have seen looking forward, if we had been able to see what we might have seen. At last, but the sentence is a puddle, is it not? We can know now that know now what was in the Count's mind. When he seized the money, though Jonathan so fierce knife put him in the danger that even he dreaded, he meant escape, hear me, escape. He saw that with but one earth box left, and a pack of men following like dogs after a fox, this London was no place for him. He had taken his last earth box on board a ship, and he leave. Let's see here. And he leave the land. He thinks to escape, but no, we follow him. Hally-ho, as friends Arthur would say when he puts on his red frock. Our old fox is Willie. Oh, so Willie, we must follow with while. I too, I am Willie, and I think his mind is a little in a little wild. In the meantime, we may rest and in peace, for there are between us which he do not want to pass, and which he could not if he would, unless the ship were to touch the land, and then only at full or slack tide, see, and the sun is just risen all day, to sunset is us. Let us take bath, dress, and have breakfast, which we all need, and which we can eat comfortably, since he be not in the same land with us. Mina looked at him apparently as she asked, "But why need to seek him further when he is going away from us?" He took her hand and patted it as he replied, "Ask me nothing as yet. When we have breakfast, then I answer all questions." He would not say more, and we separated to dress. After breakfast, Mina repeated her question. He looked at her gravely for a minute, and then said sorrowfully, "Because, my dear Mina, Madame Mina, now more than ever must we find him, even if we have to follow him to the jars of hell." She grew paler and asked faintly, "Why?" "Because," he answered solemnly, "he can live for centuries, and you are but mortal woman. Time is now to be dreaded, since once he can put that mark upon your throat." I was just in time to catch her as she fell forward in a faint. Goodness, you're making all the ladies faint. Let's see here, one sec. There we go. And now we are at chapter 24. Meaning that is the end for this stream, or at least the reading, and goodness, I have started to read faster. Before, I could barely finish the chapter at the end of time, and now look at us. 10 minutes to spare. Oh, wonderful. If I do say so myself. So yeah, definitely are some chapters left. So let's see, next Friday, it's 24th, 25th, 26th. Yeah, so probably next Friday might be the last. Underestimated the power of this book, but yeah. But yeah, hopefully it's gonna go well. So far, I really do enjoy this book. And hopefully people have, well, my dear hatchling has enjoyed this one too. And obviously my doggos here have greatly enjoyed this. I mean, they're like, oh, read more. Oh, and the trailer is gone. But yeah. Wait. 3 hours ago. Oh, someone followed me when I wasn't live. So thank you, Bebeston, for following me when I wasn't online. Thank you so much. Ugh. But yeah, this was definitely well, 4 interesting chapters today. I wasn't expecting her to get afflicted. And for the people that joined me now, you can watch the stream later. Oh, yeah. But hopefully, my dear hatchlings, you are having a great Friday so far and gonna have an even better weekend. It's always lovely to read stories, but I wasn't expecting myself to get hella spooked by a phantom in Minecraft. Like, oh my gosh. At least that proof now why I can't play horror games. So, yeah. But there are many of my the VTubers I watch that probably likes watching or playing horror games. And it is definitely a popular genre. So, yeah. But yeah, hopefully you guys have some fun plans for the weekend. I am definitely gonna, I don't know, enjoy some sunshine, something like that, doing chores, regular stuff of being an adult. So, yeah. But I hope you guys are gonna have a lovely day or night, depending on your time zones, and that you have a lovely weekend. So, if nothing hinders me or migraines or anything, I'm gonna play some games on Wednesday and then continue reading the stories on Friday. But in the meantime, make sure to take care of each other. And have a lovely Friday. Bye bye, hatchlings.